Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I'm trying to go over every single day. Yesterday I took the day off, but I'm trying to go over every single day since I announced that I'm going to be responding to more comments in the comment sections, and things that you guys bring to me I'm going to be addressing in videos. So what I've kind of been doing is reading through the comments. The first comment that kind of just like shouts out at me, and I'm like, oh, this is like something to talk about, that's the one I'm going to pick, instead of like weeding through 20 and being like, God, I don't know which one. And then, you know, the next day just going through and picking one out, another one. So I was reading through the comments, and I got down to like the third or fourth comment, and I was like, okay, wow, like this is something that nobody has ever brought to me before, and it's actually something that I've talked about on my vlog quite a bit. And I think it's an interesting topic to talk about. So, let me read this comment real quick. The comment said, and this is on my saying goodbye video that I did, the last video that I did. And it says, hi Peter, could you share any thoughts on being the last family member? I was part of a family of 6 and lost my brother last year, which I'm so sorry about. Being the last one left makes me very anxious, as I have lost my safe harbor, and also it causes me so much guilt. If I have normal petty emotions, as I think I should be grateful to still be alive, but don't really feel it that much. And I think it's a really interesting conversation to have, you know, especially given my situation of being an only child. I'm not the last one left. I still have my dad, and I still have my stepmother, and my cousin Caroline and her family, not to mention my in-laws and my extended family with my in-laws. But one of the things that I have felt in the last few years, and I've talked about this at length on my vlog, is when there aren't that many people that remember your history. My mom and I, we would share stories constantly about my childhood and growing up and things like that. So when she passed away, that kind of like faded with her. My Aunt Kathy remembered a lot of those stories. And so when she and my uncle passed away, that kind of faded with them too. I have other aunts and uncles that have since passed away on my dad's side. And so a lot of my youth, my childhood, has gone away. Not only that, but a lot of people that I got sober with in early sobriety are no longer here. So it's not just my childhood of growing up, but it's also my youth in recovery that's missing, you know? I met Tanya, I think, about 2 years sober, 2.5 years sober, and so those first 2 years, like everybody that I got sober with, or even people that I was friendly with and stuff, they're just like they moved, or they're not here anymore, they've passed away, and many of them have gone back out. So those first 2.5 years, I'm kind of like the only storyteller around, you know. There's a few people that I'll see people at meetings, you know, every once in a while, be like, oh my God, we used to go to such and such meeting together, you know, when I first got sober and whatever. But it's not like people that I would sit down and be like, God, do you remember what those early days of recovery are like? In fact, I got sober with a friend of mine. Well, she got sober, my sobriety date is December 17th, and she got sober on New Year's Day. While I was in treatment, she called me in treatment, and she was drunk. And so, on New Year's Eve, and so her sobriety date is New Year's Day. We don't talk very often. And she, I don't know, 6-9 months, she moved to get her master's degree and has been gone ever since, and got married and started a family and lives far, far away and rarely ever comes home. And we talk, I mean, maybe once a year. And she's really the only person that I have from way back then. My roommate, who is not sober, my roommate at that time, who is not sober, she lives in Germany, and so she's somebody else that I would talk to about that, but we talk maybe once a year, maybe every other year, year and a half, something like that. So I don't really have that many people. My friends from before I was using, I don't really talk to that often. My friends from high school, who I thought that I would talk to all the time, like I don't really talk to them. Like every once in a while we'll send a message back and forth to each other or whatever. But I don't really have any contact with them. So it's like kind of like my youth, my childhood, my high school years, and my younger days in recovery. Like I'm the only person that's there to tell those stories. I'm the only person there to remember them. Alex has heard them so many times he's bored of them probably at this point. But, you know, like when he gets around his family and they'll be like telling stories of like when they were in Venezuela and he was growing up and little funny things that happened, or when they were in high school or, you know, entering elementary school or whatever. And like his mom is there to, you know, tell his stories. His grandma's there to tell his stories. His aunt is there. His cousins are there. Caroline and I were very close growing up. But because she was 3 years older than me, like when I was in elementary school, she was in her final years of junior high. When I was in junior high, she was in her final years of high school. So she was always like, you know, like an entire school ahead of me. So although we were very, very close, as cousins, we didn't share a lot of the same experiences. So when I say things, I mean, we spent a lot of time at her house, but like Caroline would be gone with friends and stuff like that. So when I say things to Caroline, like, do you remember this? Unless it's a story about like our grandma or like a Christmas or something specific that happened to our family, she doesn't really remember it. Like things that happened to me individually within our family or my friend group at that time when I was growing up, she doesn't know those stories. So, and in all honesty, like my cousin Caroline, I love her dearly. She does not have great memory on anything before like the age of 15. She just doesn't remember it. So like I'll say something to her and she'll be like, yeah, I kind of remember that, but I don't remember it like really well. Like I'll even say stuff to her about like grandma, like our grandma, and I'll be like, because our grandma, one thing I always say at the grocery store is like, when my grandma would have Caroline and I, and she would be like babysitting us, we would go to the grocery store. My grandma used to smoke in the grocery store, okay? So imagine, you know, 4'10" grandma pushing a cart with little Caroline and Peter, like, you know, sitting underneath it or sitting in it or whatever. And my grandma would be smoking a cigarette. And I can remember this one time, this woman said something to her, but like, oh my God, I can't believe you're smoking a cigarette at the grocery store. Like, people used to smoke everywhere, right? And my grandma, like, with like a very husky voice from smoking and emphysema, said to this woman, she's like, why don't you mind your own effing business or whatever, you know? I say that to Caroline, and it's just like blank. Like, she doesn't remember it at all. I'm like, you don't remember those weekends at Grandma? She's like, no, I don't. I remember cleaning Grandma's apartment before she passed away. Well, Caroline was like 15 at the time, you know, so almost 16. So, okay, that's that's high school. Not late high school, but that's high school, right? So I don't really have a lot of people that remember my childhood. My dad, but my dad is not somebody that... I think because so many of his siblings have passed away, it's like, my dad was the youngest of 5. Well, not so many of his siblings, but my dad's had 2 siblings pass away, plus many in-laws that have passed away, not to mention my dad's the youngest of 5, so a lot of my cousins have passed away and things like that. My dad and his siblings used to get together and they would share stories and whatnot. I think it's painful for him to go down memory road, especially with the fact that my dad is 83 now, you know, and I think when I'll bring up stuff to my dad, he's just like, oh yeah, I remember that, and he'll tease me about things, but it's usually about the same 5 stories that he finds humor in. It's for me to say to my dad, like, do you remember this? And that, like, was emotional and heartfelt. Like, he doesn't really want to relive that stuff. You know, I'm thankful that my stepmother is still around because she does remember a lot of things because she came into the picture when I was 12. So she remembers a lot of things from my youth. But my mom would want to have very emotional conversations about things. My dad, not so much. He's an emotional person, but I think it's painful for him to have those conversations, so we just don't. So yeah, so I feel to some degree like my childhood is kind of like lost at this point. Like, I don't really have anybody. It's probably why I share so much of it in vlogs and talk about it with my husband and things like that to keep it alive, because it means something to me. I mean, I believe I'm a storyteller and, you know, live in memories and things like that. I think I also have a lot of friends that are not close. I mean, I never had a sibling, right? But I have lots of friends of mine that are not close with their families, or not close with their siblings at all, and can't depend on them. You know, that might be taking care of their parent alone, and they've got several siblings that could help but don't. So I don't know that just because if I came from a family of 5, 6, or 7, that would make a difference. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know, you know? I think the idea of having guilt about petty things, like, that is something that I have so struggled with. Really not so much from my mom passing away and things like that, but really as a result of the accident. I think what it's done is it's taught me, because the flip side of that, right? The flip side of guilt, like survivor's guilt or having guilt over things that we think are, you know, petty, like, oh my God, like, I'm so upset I didn't get my coffee the way it is, and then the immediate go-to is, well, you have lots to be thankful for, so shut your mouth, right? Like, I feel that, I mean, probably 100 times a day. That goes through my head. Anything I complain about in my head, it goes, like, that's the first thought, the first go-to. I think the thing is that the opposite of that is gratitude. And so, for me, it turns into an action of living in gratitude and being extremely thankful for what I do have and being extremely thankful for what I have been given, you know? And so if I'm like, I'm just making this as an example or using this as an example, but let's say if I'm like complaining because like, oh, my coffee isn't how I want it, right? And then that goes through my head, like, how dare you get upset about something so petty when you've been given life and you've been given so much, right? And so the flip side to that is, okay, then look at gratitude. Like, how grateful are you that you have coffee? How grateful are you that you have clean water to drink? How grateful are you for your life? How grateful are you for your sobriety? How grateful are you for your health? How grateful are you for your sight? How grateful are you for the ability to walk? How grateful are you for the fact that you are not sick today? How grateful are you for the fact that you have people around you that are loving and kind? How grateful are you for your family? How grateful are you for your dog? How grateful are you for your home that keeps you warm and safe and protected, you know, and is cozy? How grateful are you for the ability to make videos on YouTube that people want to watch and that you get to call this a career? You know, it starts there and then it just is overwhelming, right? It's like the book that Oprah talked about on her, on one of her things about gratitude. I can't remember who the book is by, but it's called Simple Abundance, right? And it's the idea of this action of turning guilt into gratitude. It's probably one of the most powerful things I've had to do in the last couple years. I knew how to practice gratitude. I believe that gratitude is an action, but it's the action of taking guilt and turning it into gratitude so that our lives become even more abundant than they are. I can't change the circumstances of my life, you know. There's been many times in my life, specifically in the last few years, that I thought, you know, why not me, God? Why not me? And I think that there's a lot of unanswered questions out there in the world, and I have to live in today, and I have to live in gratitude for those things that I've been given today, you know? And one of those things is, you know, to take it away from that, is that I don't have people there to share the story of my childhood with. I don't have people there to share the story of my early recovery with. But I do have new people that I can share those stories with, you know? And I got to have that childhood. Good, bad, and different, and I'm still here, you know? Okay, maybe I don't have a lot of people to share those early stories of recovery with, but I'm still here, and I'm still sober, right? So it's all about turning that into gratitude and living in a constant state of gratitude, which just makes your life seem so much more, right? It's just the surplus of gratitude just makes your life so much joyful, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you so much for this comment. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.